Why don't I address these two new questions that came in, and then we can go back and talk about some other stuff. Both of them are kind of in the same realm of communication. What's the nature of the communication? Let me read it to you if you don't have it. Kids have not been getting enough time for lunch. Either they wait for the microwave or are eager to go and play and do not eat. My son has been diagnosed with gastritis. At this age, he has been on Pepsid. Another parent had her kid in the ER for constipation. We do take care of our kids at home, but they spend 8 to 9 hours of their day at school. I would hate my child to be on medications because he is not eating at school. I blame it on my child too, as he hurries to play. This is a well-balanced inquiry. Please try and help with this. This kind of goes to a lot of, not problems, but issues. Everything related from lunch, how much time they have, to recess, where they're playing and how much time they have. Probably art, maybe a little bit of music. So let me explain how we approach these things. This sort of question is the type of thing that mom or dad has to take control of and let us know right up front that special needs are necessary. It's impossible for anybody to oversee all the eating habits between children who really do have an eating problem versus the child who is going to eat as fast as they can so they can run out and play, and then they get indigestion or whatever else happens, to the dawdler who will take forever to eat an apple. You think it was an 8-course meal. Talk, and then if they blow the whistle and they have to go out, then they're frustrated. So it becomes if we try to address in one policy all the differences of children, it would be impossible. We'd need a recess aid for every kid. You'd have to have an adult following you around. So the best we can do is we have general policies that we think are fair, and they're in the context of what we've always done. But we know that sometimes there's kids who, for whatever reason, whether they're naughty or whether they really have eating problems, we make adjustments. And Mrs. Marino's here, so a lot of times she'll tell me this, that, or the other thing, or a parent will contact me, I'll tell her. Right away we make adjustments. And that goes to the heart of this whole communication thing. We really try, to us it's very important, that's going to be one of our topics today, is that the school is a partner with the parents. But you can imagine it's impossible for us to meet every family's need. So we try to have an excellent academic program, excellent character program, sort of the best we can with that. But then there's individual needs. And that's why we always say the education of your child and the development of your child is in your hands, not our hands. We'll be a partner in that. They need more academics. I think those of you who know us will be right on it. If they're a naughty little boy or a naughty little girl, they need extra discipline, we'll be right on it. If they need more tender, loving care, which sometimes children need, then we'll be right on it. We can be a response to the individual needs of the children, but we sort of have to make our decisions based on what we've done in the past, modified over time, to what we feel is the best academic and character environment for all the kids. So you probably will have problems with us along the way. Or it might be recess, it might be lunch, it might be this activities in junior high. So the teachers are very, very, very willing to make adjustments. But for us to change the whole thing becomes difficult. But basically, because we're dealing with a whole group of kids, then the kind of policies or decisions we make have to be what best fits the movement of the whole group. I think, again, I'd like to go back to the overall posture we take on these. Is I think the teachers and the school at large are very attentive to responding to any issues that your children have. That's the baseline. So parents have to take the initiative if what the school does at large doesn't quite fit your son or daughter. Then, okay, let's talk about it. If we can make adjustments, we will. But for us to kind of assess, like at the recess, if some kids go out late, some kids go out early, some kids rush because they want to play, some kids rush and it hurts their health. It's impossible for a school to oversee all of that. Just like it's impossible for us to see the details of academic development. So that's, I think that's one of the benefits of being here is the school and the teachers are very responsive when there's special needs, whether they're academic or in this case, health, regarding health, and we make adjustments.
Yes. Thank you.
Sometimes that same little boy won't eat. He just needs mommy to send, young man, you come home with anything in your lunchbox again, or if I hear from Mr. Marino, haven't eaten, whatever is your discipline policy at home. Sometimes that's more of what they need than our changing our something, scheduling or something. And then I think the other question that just came in last night, I'll read this. It's in the same category about communication. One question I would have is how to foster greater communication between teachers and parents, particularly past the kindergarten level, which is understandable because parents can walk their kids in, chat with them, and then on up it's a little more traditional. I have observed, and other parents are offering the same observation, that the higher the grade, the more homework required, true, and the less communication from the teachers to the parents. And probably, I wish the person is here. If you are, feel free. I don't want to put you on the spot, because I'd have to know what kind of communication. There's one kind of communication for preschool and kindergarten, which is absolutely impossible to continue beyond that. That kind of doting, protective, careful, thorough, day by day. It's just impossible as you move up the spectrum. So I want to know that. Perhaps a weekly email, either at the beginning or the end of the week, noting special observations of the class experience or particulars of study at present or coming up. I know that is in the clipboard, so I'm assuming they want more than what's in the clipboard. Perhaps an encouragement from the teacher to the parents. Every so often that makes him or her accessible to the parent and advises us as to whether the teacher prefers email or phone calls after school hours to discuss the child's progress. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of answer it in the same way. My question back would be, what kind of communication? As far as what's going on daily, if there are any problems, it's in the homework notebook. There should be a red mark, and you know if there's a problem. No red mark, everything's okay. Your child's making adequate progress. If, again, parent driving the car of their child's growth, you feel, I'm not sure where they're at in math, or I'm not really sure where they're at in writing, contact the teacher. Helene and I talk to the teachers about this all the time. We are partners with the parents. So usually when kids bring their homework, you get a pretty good idea where they're at and whether they're struggling or not. You don't have to, for us to add another piece of communication, I would need to know why. Let's say, for example, Aaron's having trouble, okay? Then we may have to go back and forth more. He's struggling in A or he's struggling in B and so you and I need to go back for, but I don't need to do that for the whole classroom. One, it's just not possible to keep on top of it like that. Number two, the work that comes home and the homework notebook somewhat lays out where the child is at. Progress report halfway through measures if there's a problem. So you don't get a progress report, you ought to say, hallelujah, you're doing okay. Not that I see. Or if you see them come home and you don't hear anything, I'll use me because I'm still teaching in the class. I don't like math, Daddy, I don't like math, Mommy. Well, what's wrong, honey? Well, I just don't like it. Okay, you need to let me know. That is not normal. Normal is, I like math, I'm learning this, and you're progressing. When that's not happening, then the parent has to initiate the communication for me to keep continuing what's going on. I may miss the whole mark, or the teachers may. So, I write every day what we did in math today, but your child is having a problem with Joey, cheating off him, or he's copying everything from Joey, and I'm not noticing the problem. So the extent of precise communication really has to be initiated from home. I mean, of course, we're always open to more suggestions of how to make things clearer, but I'm also very conscious of giving the teachers more work if it's not precise. Does that make sense? So if there are particular needs, my goodness, we would and we should be all over it to make sure that it's being addressed. But I would probably, in terms of needing more communication, I would have to know and from a parent's perspective, what's missing. Because a lot of things we've done in communication over a long period of time has been due to complaints. You know, and then somebody had a good complaint, we thought, you know what, we better do something. The clipboard, class by class, is something. I'd like to know what's going on. We don't do anything. Okay, then we better change, because it's good to let the parents know. You take it one step further, I'd like to know every week. I'm hesitant when I put such a demand on the teachers of how I want them to teach and the quality I want them to teach. So for me to ask another thing, then I have to be convinced this will be of greater benefit to each child's learning in the class. So that's how I would approach, you know, whether or not we need more communication. Having said that, then if somebody has a great idea, I'm all, you know, happy to listen to that and see if it could be worked out. But I'm kind of balancing the load I place on the teachers, what is of the greatest benefit to the students, and then what parents need, and what needs to be addressed, and maybe what the parents should take more initiative. So on the communication piece, I don't know, you know, in fact, I was talking to Helene yesterday. I said I want to change just the name of the report card to make it, call it a partner report. It's just a name change. Nothing would change in the report card. But again, it's to convey that. I think we hold a very, very unique position. Maybe not unique is an exaggeration. At least particular role in how we run the school. That's why the classes are small. That's why we bring these teachers on and they go through 3 years of training of how we want the kids taught, is to be attentive to the needs of the kids, so they are partners with parents. So when we had everybody do the report cards, unfortunately they had to do them a few times. We had to sit down with everybody because we've got some new people on staff to explain your report card should tell parents how their child's doing in relation to some standard. Sometimes it's a group, sometimes it's a grade level, and then it should reflect if there's any difficulties in how they study or the way they study or how they're getting work done that's affecting their grade or their interest level, so that you get a report back. Where's my kid at? How's he doing? And what can I then do, either at home or together with the teacher, so we make it better? A little different than a report card. A report card says it's got a B. Should be getting an A. Too bad. Done. And I said, because of the nature of what we try to do is pretty particular. You know, our belief through and through, from teachers all the way down to kids, is this should be a place where you grow. You are always growing. And so that takes the observation of somebody who's not in your family, looking at it from an academic side, you making the assessment, yeah, he's like that at home, we're not going to change that much for a few years. Or, oh my gosh, what can we do at home to remedy this? Or sometimes the reports are, I think Joey could do much more. How do you feel? Then you may say, yeah, I think my Joey can. Okay, come on in and sit down and let's talk about what he can do. So the communication piece is very, we've worked at this hard because we've always had the intention, and that's how, you know, when we started the school, is I wanted a place that echoed our values that were at home. Now, of course, it's still the very same values, so that you're staying home or going to school, you're getting the same message. If academics are important, they get it at school, they get it at home. If behavior is important at home, it's also important at school. So they're getting the message double duty. And so the sort of role of the school as a partner is critical. So that's why I fit the communication piece within that. And a lot of times we don't see all the things, like with the eating habits or something. I wouldn't expect anybody overseeing that lunch, because I go down there once in a while. I couldn't tell anybody. I have no idea what those kids are eating or what they're doing with their food sometimes. But so the real specifics that you may see something happen or some other need, or you'd like a better picture, okay, then the school can respond to that, you know, and put our partnering comments. Does that make sense? Okay, are there, there's other things on this list, but I can pause here and see if there's other things that are helpful. But I thought I'd put it in the realm of communication, because you're all with the parent committee, and I think when you hear, and thank goodness people feel free to say something, you know, I think that's good. our posture is, okay, let us know. And if we can, we will. And if we can't, we won't. You know, we have a recess situation. I would just love for somebody to come out of nowhere and say, we're going to build you a beautiful playground. And so we're out on the blacktop. Okay? Now, the suggestions that we go on to the back lot. Well, just the other day, I think we did the back lot. And it was just slightly damp. So what happens? Kids slip, smack together. We had the worst accident that we've had anytime they've been on the blacktop. Yeah. Or just imagine if we let them out too soon and it's wet and it's muddy. Guess who's going to get 10 phone calls the next day? I just bought that pair of pants. It's just hard to make those kind of decisions when there's so many things. But we can make decisions specifically if there's needs, so that parents could ask and then we can make adjustments if necessary. The odd years, 3rd grade, 5th grade, 7th grade, are always the hardest because there's a jump in homework, there's a jump in expectation, and the kids have a hard time, and parents have a harder time because kids are frustrated. You know, they haven't adapted their habits or anything. So it happened again in 3rd grade, and you know, we've got some comments from parents, frustrations, you know. And then, so we did 2 things. We first met with all 3rd grade teachers. Okay, we still have a hole in our communication. It's one thing for parents to be frustrated and don't know how to attack it. It's another thing to know ahead of time, you're going to be frustrated, and here are 5 things you can do. Big difference. We didn't have this one. So we just realized we better do something, because we are frustrating people and we understand we understand the problems, we understand how to alleviate the concern, because it's not a big concern. But if you're, you know, people who send their children here, you're serious about education, you know, sometimes too serious when they're little. So the expectation, you know, and the worry, oh my God, he's not going to be a doctor. He won't even be a ER driver. Oh my God. All the panic comes, you know, you just lose perspective. I know, because I raised 4 kids. Your minds are, you know, you don't put things into perspective. But that was our problem. So there was a suggestion, complaints. And so then we listened to them. Okay, yeah, you're right. We need to put something in place. So they wrote a very expansive letter, and now we're talking about putting in place every early November for 3rd grade parents only. Thank God I got through the first quarter meeting.
3rd grade, I think, is the hardest. It's the biggest adjustment from the primary to the trapper. The trapper itself is a huge adjustment for us.
So, you know, this kind of communication helps. We just keep improving what we do. Any other thing on this note? There's a couple we can talk about briefly. You know, someone asked about Chinese K through 8 at Birchwood. I'd love to. We're just not big enough. Not big enough to support another foreign language program. That's probably the biggest problem. We've explored it a lot of times. You know, we've had things in kindergarten and preschool where Mrs. Chen is there so she can speak Chinese to the kids. That's nice. But just don't have the numbers. So we try to do a really, really good job with Spanish. Catherine Haskins does a great job with Latin for 7th and 8th grade, some 6th grade. But it's not something we wouldn't want to do. We'd love to do it. It'd be great to have a real strong Chinese, Spanish, and English program. Those languages are going to dominate the world, I'm sure. Someone asked about a flipped classroom. Do you know what that is? Where you do get most of your instruction at home via internet. Then you come to school and your teacher's more of a coach arrangement. So it's flipped. Yeah. There's a lot of value in it, but generally what happens is not much learning goes on at home. Yeah. That's what the research has shown. Is you got to have dedicated kids who are conscientious, or parents who oversee the whole thing. I was at a conference last weekend, last 2 days of last week, and there was lots of talk about online learning. And then there's an article in the Independent School magazine this month, and the problem is there's just no evidence that it has improved learning. because you still have to deal with the person. That's always been our issue, rather than, I'd love to do a million different cool things in education, but still, what kind of a person emerges out of the 8th grade will have more to do with what they will accomplish in high school and college than what kind of external opportunities they have. So for example, I think flipped classroom in certain things we've tried would work pretty good at Birchwood because our kids are pretty disciplined. You know, so if I say you have to do Khan Academy X, Y, and Z tonight, most of them would do it, and they'd come back with good questions, I think, to a great extent. But that's what flipped classroom means. So we've explored that and not sure that here, it's mostly in place in big public schools where they're not getting personal attention, and it's just logical. If you could take a course to go at your own speed online as opposed to sitting in a cohort of 35 kids in a certain subject or a certain grade level, then you're going to learn more. But are you driven? Will you do the work? Will you follow through? Is there discipline? That's a whole different question.
Isn't that mainly applied to older kids, like high schools?
They've tried it in upper elementary, maybe 4th, 5th, and then middle school.
There's no real evidence it improves learning.
No, I would say, you know, it's going to be circumstantial. If you're in a class where there's 30 kids, you do want to learn, and your parents are going to work with you, and they allow you to do a flipped classroom, I'd say yes, that case, probably that would be valuable. More valuable than sitting there with 30 other kids or 20 other kids in the class. They're all covering the same material, and you understood it after the first 3 days. But you've got to sit there for 3 more weeks. And, you know, if all those other issues are in place, you have the discipline, you have the focus, you have the responsibility, then it might work. Education is filled with creative new ideas. And whether they work or not, it's hard to say. I'll just go through the questions then, okay? A couple of things, unless you have some other specific things that we've talked about, want to add. Our first question is say more about how parents can best coach their children, including how this may apply to teenagers. Let's make teenagers for another session. You know, I would say the most important thing parents can do is be clear what you want for your kid. That's probably, and that takes a little reflection, thoughtfulness. Where would I like my son or daughter to be? What kind of a person do I want them to be? What level of education am I expecting for them? And then sort of plug your ears to their whining. This is something that I don't know how this got into our culture, but for some reason, no, I guess I do, because it's a part of a philosophy that somehow the children know best what they need. And you can understand it, you know, because they can whine and complain and this hurts and I don't like this. But we have to believe we know better than they what is good for them. I think I brought this up last time. You know, it's like guiding children to read a kind of literature they haven't read before. And their first response is, I don't like this, I don't like this. Okay, in your vast experience as a 10-year-old, you have concluded that this genre of literature is not to your interest or liking. And how many books have you read? Well, I started this one. How can they judge? You know, same thing with writing, especially boys. I hate writing, I hate writing, I hate writing. My argument is, I won't tell the children this, but I'll tell the parents this, hasn't written enough yet. Because if you've written enough, and you begin to discover how you can express who you are, what you think, how you view things, and other people can read it and appreciate it, you experience a joy that you can't get any other way. But if we don't sort of push them into that, they won't discover that. So a big part of education is entering into worlds that you don't know as a little child. So sometimes there's that part of I know what I want, son, and I know what we want. I know how I want you to behave. You know, probably you get this with your children with their habits. I'm just tired, I'm just tired. Okay, well, when we're tired, sometimes we have to work an extra 5 minutes. And you got to find a little strength in your heart to push yourself 5 more minutes. Can you do that? Okay, why would you talk to them like that? Because you're hoping for something higher than where they're at. And the notion that children know what they need, there is some truth to it because everybody has needs and what they like and don't like. But in terms of what's good for them in their development, that has to come from the vision of the parents. What kind of a person do I want my child to be? And so then the coaching is, you realize, well, gosh, when I want to bring them to a higher level of realization of life, have a richer experience of life, and sometimes I have to hold to what I believe is true. And that's where the guidance comes from with the children. Teenagers are different, and middle school too. At another time maybe we'll talk about that. But with little children, you're their God. You're their God. And small g. So for them, they will either get away with or do whatever their little authoritative structure puts in place for them. I'll have kids do homework, and the purpose of it was to repeat what we did in class, same kind of thing. So I am not, I do, with all the groups that we have in mathematics, there's no way for me to collect all those homeworks, take them home, grade them all, give you a grade back. Number one, there's no value. Number two, it doesn't let me oversee tight enough. So if I've got a class of 5 kids, a group of 5 kids, you take out your homework, and I can look real quickly, you got it, you wasted time, I can tell that right away. Good, I know right away. So tomorrow I want to see this homework done well. Do you understand me? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I will. I mean, that's exactly how I talk. Mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. If it's something where I want them to study something, okay, for homework, I don't want to check anything. I want to see if you got it. Okay, all of you, page 47, problem number 3, I'll do it now. And then I'm going to send them a watch. You didn't do your homework, did you? Let me see your homework now. Because the point of the homework is a part of the learning process. Not what you probably experienced in school yourself. I do my homework, I turn it in, the teacher grades it, I get an A, B, C, D, or F on it. To me, that has no value, none, because you're not catching. What was your purpose in giving that homework? What did you want to accomplish out of that? And how are you going to assess it as fast as possible? Imagine the 4 of you, I gave you homework, and you did some, you had to solve for X in some equations. You give me your homework, I grade it, 2 days later I give it back to you, and all of you misunderstood. Do you get an idea what a waste of time? I just wasted 2 days. Yeah. I wasted 2 days of instruction with this old-fashioned collect your papers, grade them in, head and the back. A little bit different in other subjects, and I could always explain that. So again, if there could be many reasons why it's not exactly happening. Even teacher neglect, I'll go even to that, just forgot to collect them. Sometimes that happens. But I think if it's a once in a while thing, I'll ignore it. Like you always turn your homework in. So, what happened? Well, okay, anyway, get it in tomorrow. In the context of all the things we're trying to accomplish academically, to miss this one homework assignment for this particular child doesn't mean much. So it could even be that.
I think what happens though with third grade, again, this is third grade, it's a big jump and everything. There's the homework folder, and you can imagine, the parents are like, we're so careful, painstaking, make sure the homework gets done, make sure it gets in the homework folder, and then when it comes back, and it doesn't have a grade, like you're saying, some of the homeworks you check, there's no, not even a red check mark, nothing. There's nothing to say that it's been handed in. And I'll get from the kids sometimes, they'll say, we didn't have to hand it in. We just, it's been checked, don't worry about it, it's fine. It's like, but there's not even a red check mark, there's nothing on it. It's like, don't worry, I got this, it's okay, we could just take it out. No, it's gonna stay and you're gonna hand it in tomorrow, you know what I mean? So then the homework folder gets thick. And then they start getting confused as to what has to be handed in, and there's sheets in there from 2 weeks ago, and do you know what I mean? And then the teachers tell the parents, please clean out the homework folder. And then we're like, but we don't know what to clean out. I don't know. But that's some of the things, the homework folder itself is becoming an issue for some of them too. So I'll tell them, I think maybe the teachers need to communicate kind of what, even if there's like just a red check mark or any check mark, even if they tell the children, put a check mark on it or something, you know,
Sure.
even something so that we know it can come out.
Yeah, good point.
That, I think that's maybe one, that might help a lot of people. But,
No.
but I forgot to mention, yes, there is the no homework stamp in the planner. I forgot to mention that. But count on that. That's your big clue. Tell that from the teacher that the child didn't hand something in. But homework was a big one from
Sure.
several of the parents.
And you know,
This
over
communication of the
32 years,
homework.
nothing has given me more complaints than homework. And after 32 years, I will not budge. And I'll tell you why. It is more than, and I've read all the articles on homework doesn't count, it doesn't matter, it doesn't have any effect. I've never seen any legitimate research to back that up. But what I have seen over the 32 years is it's tough to implement. But the value of intellectual stamina, self-control, self-discipline, you just observe kids, and I get them in the 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. You cannot imagine, I've got 2 new 7th graders this year, and the struggles they have. Not because they're not brilliant, they came out of their schools because they were inadequately challenged. Not because they're not, but because they have not learned this, what really I credit the parents, toiling over their kids. We can do this, let's stick with it, let's budget our time, you know, and then they're wandering all over, and you fight with this for 182 days, 8 years, how many, what's 182 times 8? There's a cumulative effect of the ability to focus, the ability to control yourself and get something done. And again and again and again, the reports, like, in fact, I just talked to a guy from Hawken who's teaching senior writing, and he was telling me jokingly, he says, because I got one kid who's just in another plane in terms of how they do things, how well they do things, how thoroughly they do things, how excellent. And then he says, then where'd you go to school? And she said, Birchwood. And he just laughed. He says that was consistently what he sees happening with the kids. Not all, because it doesn't always happen. Sometimes if I can go through 8 years with a family and they're fighting with me all the time on homework, I say, okay, fine, just whatever you want to do is okay. But I do know the toil is worth it. It's a pain in the neck, I know. And I think I've said this before. You think it's a pain on you, you have no idea what a pain it is on us. To check those things and to plan correctly. Oh gosh, it's a lot of work. But that's why I will not budge. Because of all the things that we do, that consistency, in an age when, unless your child is a musician where they get real strict training, there's not much to discipline children. You know, music does, you would know that well, you know, the discipline of music. But even then, some children can take music, but they're not very serious about it, so it doesn't accomplish the same kind of focus. And I call it intellectual stamina. Just like the kids can run, but if they have to do something, they know how to stay on task. So, you know, you feel free to give parents that perspective. Oh, you know, if a 3rd grade parent was complaining, tell her I'd be happy to give her 30 years of complaining to back up her complaints.
The complaint wasn't about getting the homework. It was the handing it in and coming back. And there's a sense of frustration from confusion.
Yeah, sure. That kind of thing can be cleared up and should be cleared up.
Yeah, but no, I'm like every other parent working with their kids for so long on the homework, both me and my husband, and I think it's the only way to go. I think the homework is necessary.
You know, when we didn't get to this thing, somebody asked a question about compassion, but that's one of the 7 moral virtues. But one of the moral virtues is courage. And often when you think of courage, you think of taking a stand for something, or you think of some kind of military application, that kind of courage. But actually the Aristotelian definition of courage is recognizing what you want to do, and then being willing to make whatever sacrifices and pay whatever price is necessary to get there. And I often think about that. To go through Birch's homework program, you need courage. Because, sorry honey, we have to finish this. And let me just add something, I think too, children are all different. So you get the third grader, fine, give them 20 minutes or a half hour to do their reading, they're still not going to get it done. Or they're not going to get their math done, they're not going to get their reading done. That's when the communication has to take place with the teacher. So there can be some adjustments made. Because the point is not homework. I guess I shouldn't have said it that way. The point is not homework. The point is, it is as the children get older, because it increases time on task, which of all pieces of research about that, of value in learning, that's probably indisputable one. Time on task means more learning. But from 5th grade on down, it's building up intellectual stamina. So if your child has already done his 20 minutes or whatever it is of homework, you may say, but all he did was look around. Okay, then work on it tomorrow a little bit more. But don't violate the 20 minutes, because you're creating other problems.
Right.
So those kind of things that parents can ask back, or if there's a lack of explanation about return the homework in, it's not being graded, that kind of thing needs to be fixed. And I wrote that down, and I'll talk to the teachers.
I have one quick question. How do you negotiate, well, in my particular case, Benjamin loves football. And ever since football season comes, Sunday is becoming a struggle. Do you have any suggestion how I can negotiate?
No, I think
Just turn off the TV,
all the
take him away from home.
extracurriculars are fine. The second moral virtue is self-control.
Okay.
And I just reread a book by John Dewey, and one of the main features of his whole progressive education was to teach children self-control, which means when I have to do what I have to do, I can do it. And I know how to put aside my recreation, my pleasure. That's what we talk to the 7th and 8th graders a lot about this. I don't care what music you listen to, who your friends are, what you want to do on the weekends, what your parent, but when you have to study, you have to know, I buckle down, I get this done, I do it well, I do it thoroughly, then I can let go and have my fun. So even when children are young, to begin that conversation with them, there's nothing wrong with football. I love sports. But if you don't know how to draw a line, then you just squander all your time. Not that athletics you couldn't spend a lot of valuable time, but also there's so much waste of time. Sometimes I watch the kids out here play football and they cross the finish line and they got all the peripheries right. They know how to slam the football down, how to do it.
That's what they picked up.
This is the kind of stuff that's just worthless, So teaching them how to do both. So when you budget your time to do your sport or your, whatever extracurricular activity. And when it's time to buckle down, you buckle down. Generally, as a teacher, watching children who spend a lot of time on social media, spend a lot of time listening to music, spend a lot of screen time, have difficulty focusing.
Right, I agree.
That's all.
Yeah.
But you still have to make personal judgments.
Yeah.
Some of the kids, music may be the direction they go. Pop music, for example, or dance, or anything. I have no problem with any of that. I want my child to grow and to have the capacity that whatever they discover to be their passion, let's say they end up with dance or writing, we may not think of those as discipline, actually they are. Then we want the children that whatever I tackle, man, I know how to go at it. So if I'm going to be a mathematician, I know how to put everything I am into that and become everything I can. If I'm going to be an actor, then I'm not just acting because it's fun and I can hang out. It's because I really want to know how to perfect characterizations. So all of that is right, and that's why still the parent has to drive that car. I can't make those judgments. I can only say generally.
The 7 virtues, so I know what the 7 virtues.
7 moral virtues,
Yeah.
Courage,
Okay.
self-control,
Okay.
justice, wisdom, compassion, gratitude, and humility. And then there's 3 other categories of virtue that fit under that. Performance virtues, civic virtues,
Civic,
civic,
okay.
and intellectual virtues. I mean, if you want to take some time, I could give you, we work under that picture. When we talk about character development, it's under this broad picture. We say, we want the children to become lions, eagles, ox, men. And, I know that's not, that language is not inclusive. We wrote the song before then. It's politically incorrect. So when we're trying to develop character, we have these virtues in view. So like you may want to notice our first quarter, our whole school theme was smile, be friendly, be a friend to everybody. This next, the theme is I did it. So it's all talking about performance virtues. What can you do? So we're putting up charts and giving kids little goals week long, so that at the end of the week, I did it. And put up a little marker. They're more reminders. That's not going to change behavior. But if you keep doing this for 8 years, it has an effect on the children. And plus, every morning we talk about virtue.